a step outside and seize the day now. Set aside your worries, it's okay now. The sun is here to stay. Blue skies, feel the wind beneath you as you fly by. Dancing on a cloud, it lifts you high, high, high. Your troubles blow away. And oh yeah, everything you want's right here. And oh yeah, the music's never been so clear. It goes oh, oh, na 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 na.
Right, we're ready to go. Hi, Richard. Thank you.
Morning, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. And thank you for joining us on Dogs Who Sail today.
My
Your
pleasure.
knowledge is invaluable and will be really helpful to those who are sailing southeast Queensland and pretty much up the east coast, just who have dogs on board their boats and where they can go and where they can't go. And if we could just get some clarity around that today, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And just so people know, I'm a marine person myself, do a bit of sailing, worked on the water the whole time. I'm also a dog owner with two absolutely horrible poodles.
Gorgeous. What's their names?
One is Banjo because he comes from the hills,
Right.
and the other one is Mowgli because he's certainly the wild boy.
Oh, great, great. Now, Richard, if you just want to let people know, so what's your role with DES?
So I actually work for Queensland Parks and Wildlife as Senior Ranger for Moreton Bay Marine Park. But which is more of a management role. But I've also worked for many years as a ranger right across the Queensland coast.
Wow.
Plus a fair bit of stuff in other national parks at times too. So
Wow.
I have a pretty good understanding of the Queensland coast and what the issues are for dog owners.
Yeah, great, great. Now, just for people who are unsure, we've got a global community. So Moreton Bay area is in southeast Queensland of Australia. I've been fortunate to have spent some time with Richard in the past. He's helped me out with some information with national parks and marine parks for dogs who sail. And I know that we're in good hands today. So thanks, Richard. So I thought what I'd do is start with, so one of the members has made a post which kind of encapsulates what a lot of the members are thinking around dogs and national parks and boats. So this is from David. He says, this is great that someone is engaging to discuss this topic. We understand that dogs should never be allowed to run off leash in national parks. No one should disturb sensitive areas of fauna and flora, but a leash dog toileting on the sand, that's a question. We are happy to pick up after our dogs. What is the threat with this to native species? Every national park landing point in the Hawkesbury has a huge sign warning no dogs, and there is a penalty. What, David? Yeah, there's a lot in there, but it is around that we're responsible dog owners, but yeah, why can't the dogs go on to the national park if they're on a lead? and also picking up their business.
Yeah. So first thing he says in the Hawkesbury, which is New South Wales,
New South Wales.
separate state, different rules, but across Australia, the rules are pretty much the same for environmentally protected estates. So we're talking about national parks and conservation parks in particular. And it's not just dogs, it's all domestic animals.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can come in and they can bring diseases, etc. There's always the risk of breeding with other animals. So for dogs, it's dingoes in particular.
Yes.
Interactions with existing feral animals can be a major problem. Other visitors, there's all sorts of things there. In Queensland, the Nature Conservation Act says very clearly no dogs within national parks or conservation parks. So it's a legislative thing. It's actually very common worldwide.
Right. Okay. So, and just on that point, so because there are a few people who comment from other countries saying that they don't have the same problem, and is that because we've got more of our country is regarded as national park, so it's more protected?
Yeah, Australia has a fairly high proportion of the estate as protected areas.
Yes.
Yeah, and different rules apply. And in some areas, in our protected areas, we do allow dogs.
Yeah.
But they're listed on our website. There's only a few areas, not many. And it all depends on what values we're really trying to protect.
Right.
Yeah, so other areas, areas adjacent to national parks may not allow it. Marine parks are a real example of that one, and that's where it can start to get very confusing for people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I guess that leads into another question, just about marine park. So can you explain about national parks and marine parks and where the boundaries are?
So the really big differences between national parks, conservation parks, and marine parks is tenure. So those parks that are on land, you have tenure. So that is owned by an individual. Now, for national parks, it's the state of Queensland, but it's the same as a person that owns land, right? They are fully entitled to control whatever activities carry on in there,
Right.
including who can go there, who can't go there, for what reasons, etc. Marine park, there is no tenure. So you have to think of marine parks as layered management under legislation. So there's the Maritime Safety Act, there's the Fisheries Act, there's the Marine Park Act, the Environmental Act. Once you get outside state waters, there's all the Commonwealth legislation that comes into force as well. And some of that comes into force within state waters. So it's a legislative minefield.
Yes.
It is, for somebody who is not working in that stuff continuously, it can get very, very confusing.
Yeah, right. So to kind of condense it all for the person on a boat with a dog, it can be confusing, especially when you go to different regions as well. So with the marine park, so because I guess that's where we are. We're on our boats. We're out in a marine park. Can the dog be on the boat in the marine park? Not going to shore, like not going
Yes,
anywhere. That is fine. Okay.
certainly. The marine park, as a general rule, does not exclude domestic animals.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So I can give you examples of people with dogs, cats. I know of a person with turkeys. Um,
I have seen a chicken on board.
yeah. So it's not a problem having the dog on the boat. Funny enough, national parks, it's not a problem having your dog in the vehicle if you're on a gazetted road.
I did read that. Yes.
Yeah, and that comes into some areas as well, because many of the beaches a vehicle drive on are gazetted roads.
Okay. Yes.
So
But
the problem is you can have the dog in the car, but you can't let the dog out of the car.
that's right. That's right. So, okay, so just to clarify, yes, in marine parks, the dog can be on the boat. Can it swim in the water around the boat?
Can swim in the water.
Okay, yeah.
It can go ashore.
Okay,
But remembering, in most cases, marine parks go up to highest astronomical tide.
right.
So the domestic animals can enter the marine park. There's no general prohibition on it. We can do a reg notice and prohibit animals from certain areas.
Yes.
Right, and there'll be signs there, and there'll be, and this is why people need to check the website.
Yes, yes.
Because if there is something, it will be on the website for that area.
Yeah, yeah. So if you've got a marine park and then you've got land, a national park, and your boat is here, you can bring the dog up to the highest astronomical tidal mark. Is that correct?
So as a guiding rule,
Yes.
where national park is fringing the marine park, and actually there's different scenarios, and I really hate to throw it all out there, but in some scenarios, marine park can't overlay national park or vice versa. Right. In other scenarios, they can.
Okay.
But to cover that off, the rule is if the mainland tenure is national park, dogs can't access the beach adjacent to that national park.
Okay.
Right. So, and then I hate to do it because I'm going to make it even more confusing. There is also recreational land areas.
Yes.
Moreton Island, Bribie Island, South Stradbroke, Gari, Fraser Island, many of the others. Most of those recreational management areas don't allow dogs because they're adjacent to national parks, but on some others, like the eastern beach of North Stradbroke Island, dogs are allowed.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
it's
right.
a road. It's adjacent to national park, which means you really need to go in and check each location.
Yes, okay. And those locations are on the website.
If you go into the DES website, go to find a park.
Yes, that's right.
You can do a search for the park you're on, or you can look at it alphabetically.
Yeah, yeah.
and there will be information in there with all the things. You may get things like a brochure similar to that. Hold on, my camera's reversed for some reason.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's the Gari one.
Yes.
Right. You can download that, right, electronically. You can print it, and it will somewhere in here have information on dogs.
Yes.
Right. Now, Gari does not allow dogs because of the dingoes there, right? And they are the purest strain of dingo remaining.
Wow.
So they don't want dogs in there at all because there's the potential for crossbreeding.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of other areas for various reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, I guess the like people will say to me, and the discussion is always, well, if I can go, if I can take my dog to shore and keep my dog on a lead, make him like, I'll pick up his business and then we'll go back to the boat. Why is that not allowed? That's probably the most commonly asked question.
Because, yeah, so it's managed because of those people that don't do that.
Yeah.
Right? The typical case of the actions of a few affect the actions of the rest. So people do go ashore, they let their dogs run. Their dog goes to the toilet, they don't pick up after it.
Yeah.
How do we stop that? Everybody gets banned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's how legislation works. You have to make the rules so that you can enforce it for the few.
Yes.
And that affects everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. And unfortunately now, I see it. I see people who are taking their dogs onto national parklands and their dog's not on a lead. I don't know if they're picking up the business, but yeah, I can understand from your point of view that it would be really hard to manage the people that aren't doing it.
It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
And, now that we are getting better compliance systems, generally anybody who's caught breaching a regulation at the very least will get a warning notice.
Okay.
Right. That means they go into our systems.
Yeah.
That means if they are caught doing it somewhere else, the next ranger coming along may give a warning notice again, but when he goes to input that warning notice, there's going to be a red flag come up.
Yeah.
Right. And that warning notice can be withdrawn and an infringement notice issued in its place.
Okay.
Right.
And I guess even with that warning notice, I remember you and I talked about it a while ago, and that is also like, and it's not like you're out there and policing and want to be authoritarian. It's about educating people about why the notice is.
When we talk about compliance, our compliance starts with education.
Yeah.
We need people to know what the rules are as best as possible. And we generally will provide that education first.
Yes.
A warning notice is an official notice.
Yes.
It's contestable. If people decided they wanted to take it to court, they're fully entitled to.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It's a means of us being able to prove that somebody is aware of what the requirements are.
Yeah.
Because we get these people all the time that keep going, no, I didn't know.
Sure.
And if you don't have a system that records the contact with those people, you can't do anything about it. And this is not the majority of people. This is those problem individuals again.
Yes, yes.
that just consistently do the wrong thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. But it's, and that, I don't know, I guess I'm always saying, like, for Dogs Who Sail, it is about promoting responsible dog ownership. That's the overarching, what would you say, philosophy that I stand by. But
it's not just dogs who sail, it's dogs everywhere.
dogs everywhere, yes, yeah, yeah. I've heard of people who will just continue to take their dogs to shore. They will get fines and continue to get fines because it's like, oh, the fine's not that expensive. So they're continually taking a fine just to go against the system, which, yeah, it's a little bit frustrating to see that.
General principle is you get a warning notice, you get an infringement notice, you get another infringement notice. If you're caught again, you'll get a summons. Right? It actually goes to the magistrate to decide. And remember, if an infringement notice is a very small portion of the maximum penalties for offences.
Okay, right.
And the magistrate can then issue a greater penalty, and it grows rapidly.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
So it's that is part of this tracked actions that we have to undertake.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The easiest one, check the location you're at, because it's very confusing for a lot of people. You know, you arrive at an island. What is the island? Not all islands are national park, although the vast majority of them have at least some national park.
Yeah.
Some islands are, unallocated land that you can go on board and let your dog run, do whatever you like. It's normally under council control, and council bylaws will apply.
Right. Okay. So that was another question. If it's not listed as a national park, then it would be worth looking to see what the council ruling is on that land.
Yes. So the local government area bylaws will control domestic animals down to, and again, it's a confusing area, but as a general guideline, it's to either high water or low water on an ocean frontage area.
Yeah.
Right. And at the very least, low water on any enclosed waterways, estuaries, rivers, whatever.
Okay.
So it's an area, again, where it can be a little confusing because different councils have different laws.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then you will have the dog off leash beaches. You will have dog on leash beaches, and you will have no dog beaches.
Yes. Yeah.
We are working very closely as a general rule within marine parks. We have our migratory waders that arrive about this time every year. They're just starting to arrive in Moreton Bay now.
Okay. Yeah.
It is illegal to intentionally cause disturbance of those birds.
Yes.
Dogs are a problem because it's only natural for them to want to chase something.
That's right. Yes.
If people let their dog off the leash and let them chase the birds, they're committing an offence under the Marine Park Zoning Plan requirements.
Yeah.
But if they're in an area where it's a dog off leash, that still applies. So when they come down to the beach to let their dog run, they should look and go, oh, there's birds over there.
Let's
go up the beach a little bit further.
Yeah.
And
so I think,
sorry.
Inskip, I'm thinking of, is it Inskip Point is a great example of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
a very good example, because you can have dogs,
yeah,
and you can have dogs in some of the campgrounds there,
yeah.
right? But you can't disturb the birds,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a dog, a vehicle, a person walking, and it's intentional disturbance. And it becomes a little bit difficult to enforce at times, because
Mm,
you have to be able to prove that intent. But we now have cameras, drones, everything else. We run a compliance operation every year while the birds are here.
right.
And all those resources are open to us to use to prove that this person let the dog off and allowed their dog to go and chase the birds.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and if we can prove that, we will issue a penalty.
Yes,
The
yeah.
signage is up advising people on all those beaches. Council can also take actions because they have certain things there. But by the same standard, we are encouraging properly planned dog off leash beaches,
Okay,
where
yeah.
we pick beaches that are not likely to be an area that receives a lot of bird use,
Yeah.
either roosting or feeding. Which means the chance of that encounter happening is greatly reduced.
Yes, right.
There's guidelines available for councils when they're doing it. They actually have to consult with us.
Yeah.
So, most of those beaches are fairly well planned and shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. So I'm just thinking a couple of things just with the questions that people have asked. So sandbars, how do sandbars, like I know traveling up the east coast, when the low tide comes, the sandbars are rebuilt, and that seems to be a spot where people take the opportunity to go off, give the dog some exercise and toileting, and pop back on the boat. Is that allowed?
Yep. Perfectly
Yeah.
legal,
Yes.
providing they have to remove the waste,
Yes.
and they can't disturb those birds again.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
If there is birds breeding on the island, or that's an island on a sandbar, you don't get. So a sandbar is technically a intertidal area that is below high water springs.
Yeah.
Which means there will be no vegetation. It will cover on most tides, right? If it's above high water springs, it could be classed as land and then therefore a part of Queensland.
Okay.
And it may have other special rules on it. Birds do breed, and some birds are particularly sensitive to disturbance.
Yeah.
So pelicans are a really good
Just about
example.
the pelicans being quite sensitive.
Oh yeah, pelicans. So pelicans are a really bad one because they will nest on quite low areas, and if they are disturbed, they will completely abandon the nest or chicks.
Wow. Okay.
So and that results in their death.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
if people see nesting birds, and they're not the only birds that will do that, but if they see nesting birds, please ensure you keep the dog away from them.
Yes, right, right. And that's a really good, that's a really good point. And this is what your job is all about, is conserving these beautiful parts of nature so that we're not looking back in 50 or 100 years saying, what happened? What happened?
Well, pelicans are now on the threatened species list. How did that come about? They're not at the moment.
Yeah.
They are a protected bird, but they're not threatened.
Yeah.
But we do have a lot of other birds that are threatened.
Yeah.
And many of those will abandon nest sites if, they believe predation is a problem, and that's where the dogs can be a problem.
Yeah, right. And just on that, Richard, so how do four-wheel drives fit into this scenario? Because you do see them on the beaches, and I know I've been sitting at anchor over at Moreton and seeing the four-wheel drives leg it past on the beach. How did they fit in?
So the four-wheel drives are actually operating on what is a gazetted road. So
Okay.
that we have to gazette the road to post a speed limit.
Okay.
So all those beaches have a speed limit on it. That is enforced. There's also a whole bunch of other rules there that, drink driving requirements. The hooning stuff is something we're doing a lot about at the moment. People don't really appreciate that the powers that rangers can have. So we can do things like seatbelts.
Yeah, right.
They don't realise that we use the police a lot.
Yeah.
Those vehicles operating on beaches are an issue.
Yeah.
In many areas, it's the only way of transiting between community areas. So, Gari, for example, the rubbish trucks on many of them, if you didn't have access to the beach, the council wouldn't be able to pick up the rubbish.
Sure, yeah. I think it's more like people, the argument is that, people who are in recreational four-wheel drives, driving along a beach and interfering or running over nests, doing damage that way.
So where we have no one nest sites, we'll normally post signs or something. Some beaches, some areas have closed areas.
Yeah.
Right. And that is there normally to protect known breeding sites.
Yeah.
Right. So if we know birds breed in there, we will normally have a seasonal closure for when they're breeding.
Okay.
Some cases there's a permanent closure.
Yeah.
Because the species may breed at any time.
Yeah.
So we will close that area. There's all sorts of reasons. Yeah, the legislation allows us to put stuff into place as needed to manage activities.
Yeah.